And speaking about Toria Nuland's, well, uh, going by. So, can we expect anything good out of that? I mean, well, some change in the United States course, I mean, political course, or something concerning, well, dealing with Russia, or it's just for domestic use and for Russia, everything it keeps staying as it is, as bad as it is, or as good as it gets. I don't know how to put it. I'm Russian. Sorry about that.
No, I don't think you can expect any change in American overall policy towards Russia. We're still a Russophobic nation, and that's the way it's going to be. This is purely for domestic political purposes to position a very bad situation in a way that doesn't impact the national election. And and that's it. As soon as the election's over, America will take a reassessment of where we're at. Maybe Ukraine will no longer be a problem, but we'll make Poland a problem then, and we'll make the Baltics a problem. We'll come up with another reason why, Russia needs to be confronted, Russia needs to be contained, etc. And this will continue until Europe decides that it doesn't want to play that game anymore. And when that happens, then Europe is no longer useful to the United States, and then we might reassess our relationship with Russia. But right now, no. I think we still look where Victoria Nuland went to Columbia University, where she's going to corrupt the minds of future diplomats and academics and government officials. The same as Michael McFaul corrupts the minds of people in Stanford University, as Angela Stent corrupts the minds of people at Georgetown. We could go on and on and on. No, the system, the establishment is still very much anti-Russian, and you're not going to get the impetus for change coming from the government. The impetus for change has to come from the people, which is why I'm working hard on this Waging Peace project and trying to, generate grassroots change in the United States, because if the people demand change and start to hold their representatives accountable for failing to enact meaningful change, and people start getting voted out of office, then the government will suddenly wake up and say, maybe we need to do something. But if the people are waiting for the government to make a decision on its own volition, you'll wait in vain. There's too many people like Victoria Nuland out there.
I suspect so. Well, running a bit about one question I wanted to ask you. I'll ask it now, since we just scratched the surface of exact matter. Let's assume that Donald Trump is elected. Now he's pretty much likely to grab the candidate status, Republican. So I think there are chances that he is elected. And what do you think? Can he do something? I mean, maybe something which might, get Russia, United States, and Russia-Europe relations a bit better. Is he able to start some process in which NATO may come to, this membership, and maybe he's able to do something, good, which might start a process in which we could hope for getting things better?
I mean, there's always a possibility he'll start a process, just like he started a process with North Korea, met with Kim Jong-un 3 times. But then he was betrayed by his own staff, by his own Secretary of State, his own National Security Advisor, by the deep state, by the establishment. And in the end, he was unable to do anything. With Russia, it's even more complicated because, Donald Trump is somebody who can never be allowed to look weak. So if he's going to oversee the dismemberment of NATO, He's going to do that from the perspective of why should America underwrite European security if Europe doesn't want to underwrite their security, da da da. But then, he at the same time he's going to have to look tough on Russia then. So he'll say, well, we're going to continue to sanction Russia, et cetera. I mean, if he's going to open the door to Russia and have meetings with Russia, then he's going to have to say, well, while we're trying to improve, of course, we want to strengthen NATO. Donald Trump is not a man who can, try to do the right thing in a way that opens himself up to being attacked. He's not man enough to withstand the attacks. He has let his ego get in the way. He lets his pride get in the way. If you recall, the last time he started the 2016 campaign, why can't we just be friends with Russia? And he finished his term in office. I'm the most anti-Russian president possible. I sanction Russia more than anybody in the world. How do you square that? It's because of Donald Trump's ego, because he can't do the right thing, because who knows what the future will hold. Maybe he'll be a different president now that he only has 4 years. He doesn't have to worry about re-election. Maybe he learned his lesson from last time, bring in better advisors. But he will always have Congress around his neck. Congress is a deeply Russophobic Congress. And Congress will not willingly give up the tool of sanctions. And Donald Trump is not man enough to stand up to Congress and tell them to pound sand on the issue of Russia. So if I were Russian, I wouldn't expect anything great coming out of Donald Trump. In fact, I'd be look, Vladimir Putin said it the best. At least Joe Biden, you know what you're getting. It's predictable. Every conversation I've had with Anatoly Antonov, the Russian ambassador to the United States, what he says is all he really wants more than anything is predictability. Because if there's predictability, then you can make plans. It doesn't have to be, the predictability can be bad things, but at least you can plan for it. You can then say, okay, this is the way it is. I'm going to make a plan for it. But the worst thing from a foreign policy and national security standpoint is unpredictability, because you can't make plans. Donald Trump is an inherently unpredictable person. And this is not good for Russia, because the consequences of a mistake occurring because of unpredictability are dire. So for all those people out there who think that Donald Trump's the man, we need Donald Trump, the war in Ukraine is going to end. The war in Ukraine should end before Donald Trump gets elected. If it doesn't, that's a problem for Russia. But if you're hoping that Donald Trump's election changes the outcome of the war, then you've already lost, haven't you? Because you're basically saying that in order to win the war, you need an outsider from the United States to come in and do this. Donald Trump is irrelevant to the conflict in Ukraine. As I said, this war should be over before November. Russia should have won. It should be in the cleanup stage. And that would be better, because now Donald Trump doesn't have to pretend that he can solve the war in 24 hours. I mean, what does the average Russian think of the arrogance of that statement? That Donald Trump believes that 24 hours after he's elected, he can end the war in Ukraine. Wow. I mean, like he's magic. That means that Vladimir Putin's not a serious man. That means that Lavrov's not a serious man. That means that Gerasimov's not a serious man. Shoigu, these aren't serious men. Because no serious man could allow an outsider to solve a problem in 24 hours that they couldn't solve in 2 years. It's the greatest insult possible to the Russian people, to the Russian government, to the Russian leadership. And yet somehow many people in Russia are like, we need Donald Trump. You don't need Donald Trump. Nobody needs Donald Trump. He may win the election, but nobody needs that. Nobody should want that, because it's unpredictable.
That's one of the best things on an interview that could happen. I asked this question because some of my viewers are very concerned who will be the next president of the United States and how they should get their approach to that. We cannot change anything, but we want to know how to take it. So when people want to figure out, they ask questions. And thank you for that, Scott. That was one of the most brilliant.
I'll even go a step further. America is not going to change for many, many years. Even this grassroots effort that's taking place is generational. The best you can hope for right now is to avoid a nuclear war, so that we are alive when and give the next generation a chance to change things. But anybody who's thinking that America and Russia are going to be friends in the near future, the nations, you're wrong. It isn't going to happen. America is fundamentally sick in the head about Russia, and the re-education process is going to take generations. So my advice to the Russians is continue to have a warm spot in your heart for any Americans who want to be your friends, but don't hope that somehow things are going to change. It isn't. The future for Russia is what the Russian government has said. Russia needs to be self-sufficient. Russia needs to be a nation that can stand on its own. If you believe that Russia can only succeed by being friends with America, then you've already lost because you've given up on Russia.
Yeltsin's philosophy. I'm sorry for interrupting you. That's Yeltsin's philosophy, as it is.
It is. I think it's time for Russia to internalize the Putin philosophy, which is Russia could be a friend with all nations, but isn't dependent upon any nation. That Russia is a self-sufficient nation, that Russia can stand on its own 2 feet and will stand on its own 2 feet, not as a weak nation, but as a strong nation, as an equal of anybody. And here's the other thing. If you want America to be your friend, America, the nation, collectively, then we have to respect you. We have to respect you. We won't respect somebody who keeps looking up to us with, adulation and hey, oh, it's the big brother here to help me. Big brothers never respect the little brother because they push them around. They use them. If you allow America to push you around, to use you, to dictate to you, to somehow impose its will on you, then you'll forever be a weak nation, and America will never respect you, and then you'll never have good relations with America. The only way to have good relations with America is for us to respect you. And the only way we're going to respect you is for you to stand up on your own 2 feet and show you don't need it. It's sort of like, a guy going after a girl or a girl going after a guy. If one side is too easy, if the girl's too easy, does the guy respect her? Nope. You know how the guy falls in love with the girl? When she's indifferent to him, when she says, I can live without you. I don't need you. I can move over here and my life will be just fine without you. And suddenly the guy's like, no, I've got to. And then he starts doing the right things. He starts appreciating her. He starts buying her flowers, not because he's trying to dominate her, but he's trying to show his love, that they're equals, that they can work together. And it's the other way around. If a girl abuses a guy, the guy walks away. But the second the guy says, I don't need you, I can do this, the girl changes her attitude. If you want America and Russia to be friends, you have to demonstrate to us that you don't need us. You don't need us. You have to make us want you. What we want is a strong nation that we respect, that we admire. So become that. Stop thinking that your road to salvation goes through the West. It does not. The road for Russian salvation goes through Russia and Russia alone. Be proud of who you are. I'm proud of who I am as an American. I am. I think America's a great country. I'll put my history up against anybody. We have done great things, amazing things as a nation. I'm not ashamed of being an American. I'm ashamed of my government, but I'm not ashamed of being an American. But just because I'm proud of who I am doesn't mean that you have to say, well, then you're better than we are. No. You need to stand up and say, I'm proud of being a Russian. I'll put our history up against anybody. And it's not a perfect history. I mean, America's conquest of the West, what we did to the Indians, I mean, come on, what Russia did to, the Kazakhs, what Russia did, going in their drive through Central Asia, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty, but it's there. It's history. It's part of your history, the expansion of Russia, the growth of Russia, the expansion of America, the growth. It doesn't mean you have to say this is good stuff. You just have to say that's our history. We own it. It's how we got to be where we are. And a good nation says we learn from our mistakes. We learn from things. And Russia seems to have. You have good relations with your neighbors. America's still working on it. We're trying to get, we have crap relations with the indigenous Americans because we treat them horribly. And if you're a Russian, I'll tell you this. Reflect on how you feel about Central Asian immigrants. and maybe understand that if you have a low opinion of them and you treat them horribly and you view them as subhumans, then you're sort of like we are, the way we treat the American Indians, like crap. A lot of Russians treat people with respect. That's why and I think that was the Soviet experience. It was a good experience in that standpoint, where everybody was, operating under a single roof and all that. I think the Russians learned how to treat other people with respect, and the majority of Russians do. But Russia needs to love Russia. That's the bottom line. Stop waiting for America to like you. Stop believing that the only way you become a cool person is for America to like you. You're like that kid in high school that can only be liked if, it can only feel like they're really something if the cool girls like them or the jocks, the cool boys like them, But if you're waiting for someone to like you, then you're not worth liking. Make yourself likable and don't care who likes you just by being the best person out there. Be the best person you can be. Be who you are. Live up to your full capability. And then suddenly the cool guys are going, that guy's cool. I want to hang out with him. And you can be like, I don't want to hang out with you, or I do want to hang out with you. It doesn't matter. You're in charge now. And I just, that would be the only advice I would give is I want American Russians to be friends. I really do. But I don't want to be friends with a weak nation. I don't want to be friends with a people. I love Russia because of Russia's history, because of your culture, because of who you are. But when I meet a Russian, I want to meet a strong person who meets me with a firm grip and the look in the eye that says, I'm a Russian. I'm proud of being a Russian. Then I'm like, this is a worthy friend. This is a person that I want to be friends with. I'll never kneel before you, and you'll never kneel before me. We'll be friends. But if I come in and I feel like I get uncomfortable when people are, oh, America's great and all that. Well, no, we're not. We're good, but we're not great. We got a lot of mistakes here, guys. You need to have open eyes about what you're dealing with here. But on the other hand, why don't you think you're great? I mean, why have you turned your back? That's my problem with Russians who gravitate to the West. Again, I want friendship, but if you're gravitating to the West by turning your back on being Russian, there's a problem then, because I'm like, why don't you respect who you are? Why don't you respect your history? Why don't you respect your culture and all this stuff? And then I'm a little worried about that. The Russians that I've met, generally speaking, love being Russian. And that's what I love about them, because I'm meeting a genuine Russian. And that's the great experience. When they show me their countryside, when they show me their city, and they're proud of it, no matter what. I mean, look, I was in Irkutsk. I saw good things. I saw things that weren't good. Irkutsk's not a perfect city. There's no such thing as the perfect city. It's a cool city. It's populated with really cool people. It has a great history. And I enjoyed meeting the people of Irkutsk and seeing their city through their eyes and learning the history and all this stuff. That's what made it wonderful. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for reality. I'm looking for the real thing. And in Russia, generally speaking, I got to see the real thing because the Russians I met were really in love with being Russian. And that's a good thing. But there are a lot of people out there who are still infected with the Yeltsin disease of, we can only be great if the West is helping us be great. No, Russia could be great just by being Russian. Russia is great by being Russian. Russia's less than great the second it believes that its path to greatness goes through the West.
And a few movies that I love the most, and sometimes I rewatch them, just switch on the TV and they are on just in background. And the movie about Peter the Great, he's going up to the power and his great deeds. And he said absolutely the same thing as you are. You're just proving that us, we have been right about ourselves all along. Peter said, we must be great. We used to be a small politique for the West, and we'll be great. And he built the navy, which feared the Turks who owned the sea. They feared Russian navy. So, yeah, they're absolutely right. You do understand Russians, and that's That's a great thing. And yeah, you just proved again that first of all, you're going to be respected, you're going to embrace yourself, first of all. You're going to be strong. And the greater you are, the better treated you are, if you're self-sufficient. That's, by the way, in one of the best TV series I know, Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. Please don't laugh, Lex Luthor. That's why Lex Luthor respected Clark Kent. He was the opponent Lex expected. The opponent hard to beat. So,
look, I don't laugh because I mean, I'm not laughing to make fun of you. I'm laughing because, look, I'm the same way, to be honest. I watch movies and TV shows, and it's funny because you're watching something that, you know, on the surface just seems so ridiculous. But then when every great story, no matter how ridiculous it is, Superman, Lex Luthor, the Kryptonite, a good story gets into the human dimension, and it gets into, you know, the struggle of humanity in general, and it really succeeds if you identify with, you know, a character and what that character is going through, and et cetera, and you can see parallels. So, you know, I'm a big fan of Guardian of the Galaxy. Now, what serious person in his life would ever be a fan of a show where the star is a talking raccoon? You know, and yet, when you look at Guardian of the Galaxy, every human struggle a person goes through is laid out right there in a wonderful fashion. And, you know, so that's why I was laughing, not to make fun of you, just because when I hear you, I'm like, yeah, guilty. That's what I do too. You know,
guilty as charged. Absolutely. And
yeah.
me, you know, sometimes I was being accused. Do you believe or not? Believe it or not, of being too Western person, and I always said, no, I'm not. I'm too Russian for that. But the thing is that I'm so interested in Western history, culture, especially English and the United States. I'm just interested, and well, as an interested person, as a motivated person, I'm going into that to understand people better, and that's why I absolutely understand what you mean. Why shouldn't I watch things like Smallville, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers, and Iron Man? Not because I adore them, because I just love this story.
Well, you're learning about humans. It doesn't look.
Yeah.
My wife watches. I'm going to get in trouble right now because I'm not supposed to talk about my wife, but my wife watches Korean dramas. That's a big thing. And the other day she was like, "You got to watch, you know, this particular." She was watching a Korean movie, in fact, and I'm like, I'm not. I don't want to watch Korean dramas. I'm not. It doesn't attract. It's not what I want to do. I mean, I'm busy trying to do all this stuff. She's like, "No, really watch it." So I did, because she's my wife, and I must do what my wife wants me to do. It was in Korean, so I was reading subtitles. But even if you don't read the subtitles, the acting was actually very good. But the point I'm trying to get at is, once you got into the story, it didn't matter who the people were and what language they were speaking. It was about humanity. It was about human emotion. It was about the human character. It was about human development. And so that's why I think, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, a good show, you know, a good Russian movie if I fall in love with it, doesn't mean that I'm, you know, that I've sold out to Russia, or that, you know, or if I watch a Korean drama, I've sold. A good story is a good story, you know, whether it's told in English, whether it's told in German, whether it's told in Russian, whether it's told in Korean, Chinese. A good story is a good story because all people can identify with the characters, because they're not telling a Russian story, they're telling a human story. They're telling a, you know, not an American story, but a human story. And in that way, it's good. I think it's always good to explore these kind of things.
This is a question from my viewers also. They are opening the polling stations in Transnistria, in a few cities and villages. Kishinev warned Russia and Transnistria that there will be consequences, and they're not allowed to do that. So what are we talking about here? Some people and also viewers from Transnistria, from Tiraspol, they are afraid that Moldova is going to make a move against Transnistria, and maybe Romania or some other countries may help them, because it doesn't affect for the general thinking Russia, because they consider Transnistria as their territory, so they are free to do whatever they want. So is there a risk of Moldova making move against Transnistria? And some people are afraid that Ukraine from their side may help them if they do. What do you make out of it?
I mean, there's always a risk. I don't think the Moldovan army is well known around the world for its offensive capabilities. I didn't realize that they suddenly were transformed into this all-powerful military capable of carrying out, significant offensive operations. I also, last time I checked, Moldova is rather dependent upon Russia for gas. I don't know how strong and vibrant the Moldovan economy is, but is it ready to take that hit? And I would also say this: if Moldova wants to play games, there was somebody from a part of Moldova that has pro-Russian tendencies just in Russia. I think Moldova would lose more territories and may very well lose more territories going forward. Ukraine doesn't have enough manpower to man the front, let alone open up a second front against Transnistria. And if Romania wants to join, there will be no Article 5 protection, so Romania will be destroyed by Russian missiles. So, yeah, if people want to play ball, but I don't think Russia's messing around. The thing about the Russians is that very rarely do they allow something to happen without thinking through the consequences. Meaning that if the Russian government didn't want these polls to open because it put Russia in a very difficult situation, then Russia wouldn't allow the polls to be open. Russia's already said that an attack against Transnistria is an attack against Russia. They've already said this. So while Transnistria right now legally isn't part of Russia, an attack against Transnistria will be treated as if attack against Russia. Maybe people don't believe Putin, but again, I believe that the Russians don't say things and don't allow things to happen without being fully cognizant of the consequences and the potential fallout. So I think Russia has thought through, the various iterations of what could happen and is prepared to deal with the consequences. I don't think Romania is prepared to deal with the consequences. I don't think Romania understands what happens when their entire energy infrastructure goes out, when critical infrastructure disappears, when the troops they send into Moldova come home dead, because this will happen. And it won't have NATO protection, because it's not an Article 5 mission. NATO's not going to commit suicide by, supporting a Moldovan strike against Transnistria. So I think there's a lot of posturing and bluffing and saying things, but I don't think they're serious about it. I don't think Sandu understands how precarious her position is. She's not a popular leader. There is a significant percentage of the Moldovan population that wants good relations with Russia, not bad relations. And as I said, there's an additional region in Moldova that would be more interested in being part of Russia than being part of Moldova. And if she wants to play stupid games, then she'll pay stupid prices.
It's great to know that. Great to know that. And Scott, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your deep, as always, deep and fascinating explanations, emotional, and because of that, very colorful and very interesting. Thank you so much. I hope you will have a good rest, as your non-stop doing that is has to stop sometimes for a while, maybe for a little while. Just
We'll see.
you have to use some time to rest. So thank you so much, and hopefully we'll meet again on my channel.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me on, and best to your audience. And we will definitely be in touch together sometime in the near future.